Goal gradient effect. Hello friends! Have you ever noticed that at the beginning of a long marathon, running feels exhausting, but the moment you spot the finish line, a sudden second wind kicks in and you start running faster? This isn't just a feeling, it's a fundamental law of psychology known as the goal gradient effect. Discovered back in the 1930s, it shows that our motivation and effort increase as we get closer to our desired goal. We start moving faster, working harder, or spending energy more actively when the finale becomes visible. Messenger effect. Don't shoot the messenger who brings bad news. But in the modern world, we often not only shoot the messenger, but decide whether to believe the news at all based entirely on who brought it. This phenomenon is called the messenger effect. Psychology teaches that our perception of information is inextricably linked to the person delivering it. We endow the messenger with authority, attractiveness, or power, even if it has nothing to do with the core message. It's a cognitive bias successfully used by marketers and politicians alike. Sailing ship effect. What do you think happened to the sailing fleet after the steam engine was invented? Was it thrown into the dustbin of history? Not at all. A fascinating thing happened, which psychologists call the sailing ship effect. This term describes the phenomenon where an outdated technology suddenly undergoes rapid development and becomes better than ever precisely under the pressure of new, more efficient competition. When steamships began carrying cargo, sailboats didn't vanish. They adapted. New designs emerged utilizing steel hulls and complex rigging systems that allowed them to maneuver faster and remain economically viable on specific routes. Cheerleading effect. You've probably noticed a strange pattern. When you look at an individual person on their own, they might seem ordinary. But when that same person is surrounded by friends in a group photo, they suddenly pop out and look much more attractive. Welcome to the cheerleader effect. First popularized on television, this effect is a cognitive bias studied by psychologists. Its core premise: we perceive individuals as more attractive when they are part of a group than when viewed in isolation. Einstellung effect. Once, a famous chess master was asked why he missed an obvious winning move against a novice. His answer shocked everyone. I was focusing too long on the complex, sophisticated strategy I already knew, and simply failed to see the simpler, more elegant move right in front of my eyes. This is a classic example of the Einstellung effect. Einstellung translates from German as attitude or set. It is a cognitive bias where we lock onto a familiar, traditional method of solving a problem, even if that method is inefficient or superior alternatives exist. It prevents us from thinking outside the box. Goldilocks effect. This porridge is too hot. This one is too cold. But this one is just right. Remember that classic fairy tale? Psychology uses this story to describe a powerful cognitive bias that influences our choices daily. The Goldilocks effect. It dictates that people tend to avoid extremes and pick the middle option when presented with a range of possibilities. Our brains subconsciously search for the golden mean that offers the best balance of risk, cost, and quality. This effect is widely leveraged in business and communications. Spotlight effect. You step outside with a tiny stain on your shirt and become convinced that every single passerby is staring right at that stain. You feel like you're standing under a blazing spotlight illuminating all your flaws. Welcome to the spotlight effect. This is a cognitive bias that causes people to overestimate the degree to which others notice their actions or appearance. Our egocentric minds place us dead center on stage, whereas in reality most people are entirely wrapped up in their own thoughts and problems. Backfire effect. Imagine you're trying to convince a friend that their favourite conspiracy theory is completely false. You present undeniable facts, statistics, and expert consensus. However, instead of changing their mind, your friend digs in deeper, becomes even more convinced they're right, and starts arguing with you double the aggression. This is the classic manifestation of the backfire effect. This psychological phenomenon describes a situation where trying to debunk someone's beliefs with factual evidence triggers the exact opposite result, a reinforcement of their initial belief. Facts not only fail to persuade, but provoke a defensive reaction, strengthening irrational conviction. False consensus effect. People frequently make the mistake of assuming that their own beliefs, values and behaviours are mainstream and shared by the vast majority of those around them. This phenomenon, which psychologists call the false consensus effect, is a cognitive bias pushing us to overestimate how much others agree with us. This happens largely because we tend to hang out with people people similar to ourselves and project our personal experiences onto the whole world. We gloss over discrepancies and assume our viewpoint is simply the norm. Dilution effect. The dilution effect is a cognitive bias where the impact of a strong core message gets watered down and loses its punch if it's accompanied by a flood of irrelevant, weak details. When people receive a mixture of diagnostic and non-diagnostic information, their final judgment tends to regress toward a neutral middle ground. Social proof effect. Have you ever walked past two restaurants, one completely empty, the other packed with a long line of people waiting outside, and chosen to wait in that line, assuming the food there must be incredible? Welcome to the social proof effect. First coined by psychologist Robert Cialdini, social proof is a psychological phenomenon where people copy the actions of others in an attempt to reflect correct behaviour in a given situation. When we are unsure or lack information, our brain takes a shortcut. If everyone else is doing it, it must be right or safe. Status quo bias effect. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But what if it is broken, or at least terribly inefficient, yet we still refuse to change it? This stubborn resistance to change is known as the status quo bias. Psychologically, humans have a strong emotional preference for the current state of affairs. Any change from the baseline is perceived as a potential loss or a risk. Because our brains hate uncertainty and loss much more than they value potential gains, we choose to stick with the familiar even when a much better alternative is right in front of us.